everyone. Sherry Sokolowski here with SLS Event Planning and Consulting. And today we have James Tevault with us here from Tempe Tourism. And he and I are going to be talking a lot about live events in the Tempe area in Arizona. James and I kind of came across one another a few months back as one of my clients hosts 3 of their events a year in Arizona. And Tempe is one of the great places that we love to look in to booking our events. And I'm going to let James talk a lot more about what Tempe is all about and what they have to offer, and why should you be thinking and considering bringing your next live event to his area. So James, welcome. If you'd like to share with us a little bit more about you and your role in the tourism industry in Tempe and what Tempe is all about.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Sherry. Yeah, as you mentioned, my name is James Tevault. I'm the Director of Sales there at the Tempe Tourism Office, and I have been there for just over 6 years. So I'm very fortunate to be working with such a great team. We have a team of 5 on our sales, and our overall Convention and Visitors Bureau team is 13 large. So we're a very active tourism office as far as trying to promote it for different types of leisure travel, group travel, and sports travel. Those are our main components as far as what we're trying to accomplish. I do love working for Tempe. I always talk about it as it's not just a job. It's something that I feel very near and dear to because I work really hard within the community. I've worked prior to that at an adjacent city, Mesa, Arizona, and I was there in a similar role doing that for over 6 years as well. So if you go back beyond that, I have managed hotels in the area. So Arizona, I've lived in for many years. I've worked in for many years, and I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what goes on within our industry. And I really look at travel and the tourism industry as an extension of economic development, because it's not just that one trip that you make to Arizona. It's that trip that you make and maybe it turns into a really cool experience, and then you decide to either buy a second vacation home out here, or maybe you end up opening up a second headquarters here in Arizona. So it's really about the big term or long range picture when you're talking about tourism and traveling to Tempe or even the Arizona area as a whole.
Very true, because not a lot of people realize what it's like. So that brings me to the next question of, with the live event industry where it is right now being on hold, what is Tempe doing to, or Tempe, I keep wanting to say Tempe, what is Tempe doing to say, hey, we're ready. When everything is open, we're ready to welcome new business. And what could people look for when they want to book that next live event? What could they look for in the Tempe area?
Well, I mean, there's so much to talk about when you look at that whole picture. But really the key focus of our team, and as I mentioned, we have a great team of 5 on our sales efforts that's really connecting with individuals within the corporate world, the association world, and we work with a lot of independent meeting planners like yourself, and then we work with a lot of the third-party meeting planners as well. So our main focus right now is doing a lot of client and partner follow-up. We're really reaching out to our clients, checking in on them, if you will, doing kind of a goodwill check just to make sure that they're doing okay, and learning if there's any ways that we can help them. If it's something that maybe was in that window that they're still trying to figure out how do they plan or move forward with it, then we're trying to provide as much information as we can based off of what we know. Right now, there's a lot of just monitoring and listening to what's happening and making sure that we're following the federal and the state guidelines. So we're constantly meeting with our governor. We're constantly meeting with the city of Tempe. Our team is participating in other avenues where we can learn more from group side and also the sports side of what do events look like moving forward. So we're just trying to make sure, A, that we have good relationships that they know that we're here, because there's a lot of folks that unfortunately have been either laid off or furloughed, and we want to make sure that they at least know who they can contact, whether it's at our office or at our hotels or with other attractions and industry partners that they may have worked with in the past or they would like to work with in the future. So we think that that's really the most important thing, is working on building those relationships and making sure that we still foster those connections depending upon what the client's needs are. Because independent planners like yourself, you're going to be working with a multitude of different clients that have different needs. So that's where we're doing a really good job of just making sure that we're up to date. And then once we have a lot of the restrictions that are behind us and we are starting to look forward into hosting safe events in Tempe and across the country, we want to make sure that we let people know that we have a lot of different free services, whether it's our destination experience trips, where if you've never been to Tempe or even the greater Phoenix area, you're welcome to come out and we will take care of that trip for you. And it's a little bit more focused than sometimes when you do fam tours. I know that those are still popular in some destinations, but we found that we would rather be very customized and make sure that when we're inviting a client or a planner out, that they have the opportunity to tell us what their needs are. And then we build a very customized, specific itinerary where they go see what they need to see. Sometimes when you attend a fam, you have to go to every full service property, or you have to go to every restaurant that is within the membership. And that's one of the things that I think is unique for Tempe Tourism, is we're not a membership CVB. Our focus is to promote our destination. We only promote our Tempe hotels because it's a part of our funding. But anything beyond that, if you need a transportation provider, an AV provider, if you need a really unique offsite venue and Tempe doesn't have exactly what you're looking for, that's where we can work with our other industry partners within the greater Phoenix metro area. We're not limited to just working with our paid membership. So I think that allows us to really provide that customized service and the experience that each individual client is craving and desires when they're trying to figure out what is a successful event to them. A few other things, again, I could talk about this quite a lot, but a few other things that we're really doing is we're going to make sure that we are going to be present. We're going to be going to the travel shows. We're going to be in partnership with different folks to make sure that they know that we're present, whether it's part of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce or Meeting Planners International or Meeting Professionals International, or other industry associations like that, just so that way people know that we're here, we're ready for business, and we have the most up-to-date information that we can help you have a safe event, because we're learning a lot about how people are envisioning the evolution of events, and none of us really know what that's going to look like until we start dipping our toes in the water and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And that's where we're going to make sure that we're doing a good job of making sure that we know what those travel protocols are, what those event protocols are, and that if it needs to be implemented. And I mean, we've even had conversation within our sales team of, do we need to order promotional items that are face masks and hand them out just in case individuals end up running out or they just don't have them, or whatever that might be. We're just thinking ahead, is how do we make sure that we're prepared for whatever those protocols might be. So, and then the only other thing I might mention, that as far as what we're doing, as far as how we're communicating and how frequently we're communicating, is we do have our e-newsletters that goes out to all of our meeting planners that are within our client database, and then also to all of our sports rights holders within our database. And we're touching base with them on a quarterly basis. It's nothing intrusive. It's very simple. We're keeping them up to date if there's new properties that are opening, if there's new venues that are opening. And then moving forward, we will talk about some of these protocols or availabilities or windows of availabilities, because I think that's going to be another thing. Is everybody thinks that the potential is we just take our spring events and we put them in the fall and winter. But when you do that, you already had events in the fall and winter, so you're going to run out of availability. So those are just some of the things that we're going to do, is just make sure that we're being consistent in our communications, but not overwhelming, and then be here when it's needed, whether it's a phone call, a Zoom, a Skype, a Teams, whatever type of technology people are now using. We want to make sure that we can be accessible to those that need assistance.
That's a lot of great information, James. And I think just kind of recapping what you just said, that I wrote down a couple of bullet points here. And I think one of the most important, you said a number of really, really great points, but one of the ones I want people to realize right now is the relationship building. Having a direct point of contact like James, or someone in his office, in the Tempe tourism office, they can be your point of contact, right, in that area of Arizona. So instead of trying to figure out, well, is that hotel going to be ready, or what hotel should I be considering, or what could I do in Tempe if I want to bring my event to Tempe? Instead of reaching out to so many multiple different people, the first stop should be James in his office, because they're put in place to make sure everyone comes to Tempe. They know what's happening. They know the areas that you could go to. And like he said, he can set up a tour. Right now, I've been noticing the next thing that hotels are doing are virtual tours, which honestly I thought was super cool idea. They should have done a long time ago, because not everyone can travel to the location before COVID-19. It's not as convenient. But now doing virtual tours, what does that look like? And building that relationship with someone in an area, that would be really a good area for someone to host a live event and to have that main point of contact like yourself. So I think that was something key that I don't want anyone to miss. So those of you listening, if you're getting anything out of this conversation with James and I, is the fact that you can reach out to James at his office in Tempe, and we'll make sure that you have that information too. Before we end the call today, so that you know what is happening. As you said, James, we don't have any idea how things are going to happen. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what measures are going to be in place in the next 30 days. They could change 60 days from now. They could change, 120 days, 3 months, next year, 2021, it could be completely different. So instead of trying to figure it all out on your own, you can reach out to James in his office and find out what measures are being put into place, and what you guys are understanding and what's seeing, what new properties are ready to be opened, what properties aren't quite ready, what new could be coming up that no one would know about unless they reached out to you. So I think that is super, super important for people to realize that, as well as the fact that you guys are keeping up with the travel and event industry protocols. You guys are going to know what Tempe has put into place, because you're taking the time, because you want the business. So you guys are taking the time to find out what that is, instead of us second guessing the information coming across from someone else. You guys will know that. So anyone listening, that is the whole reason and the whole point by why I wanted to bring James on, so that you guys can realize that someone like himself in his office will have that information for you at the ready, because that's what they're spending their time doing, so that they can continue to bring business to Tempe and to have you guys come and visit, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, one thing I didn't even mention is, with events changing and evolving, we'll also communicate. And if you reach out to CVBs and DMOs like Tempe Tourism Office, there's going to be different incentives. Incentive packages are going to change. Some are going to be able to do a little bit more. Some are going to not be able to do as much because budgets have been cut. But again, starting with a CVB or a DMO's office is super important. Another thing I always encourage individuals is to think about, if you're looking in the greater Phoenix area, feel free to start with me. And again, if Tempe isn't the right fit, I hope it is, but if it's not, we have really good relationships with our adjacent cities. I mean, I'm constantly on phone calls or text messages and email threads with Visit Mesa, Experience Scottsdale, Visit Phoenix, Glendale, Gilbert, all of our neighboring cities. Because again, even if you are considering one or two Tempe properties and two Phoenix properties and something in Scottsdale, we will work together to build that site experience so that way you don't have to talk to somebody in Phoenix and somebody in Scottsdale. We will
Right.
do all of that behind the scenes and be your one point of contact. So I always like to say that. I mean, obviously there's competition and we would love you to be in Tempe first and foremost, but we're also we play well in the play yard, if you will. And we
Uh-huh.
understand that at the end of the day, we want to make your event successful. It's not necessarily just that it has to be in our specific city to be successful.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's true. I've experienced that myself, and that's kind of how I came across Tempe. Because when I was doing my reach out for my client in Arizona, they were in the Gilbert area, and they're like, "We want to expand. We want to see what else is out there." And Tempe was one of the ones where I reached out to find out if we could have a venue that was going to meet their needs. And like you said, not every city is going to have a venue that meets your needs, but because you have the relationships already built, you can have that conversation with someone or an event planner that they may hire, or the client directly themselves and say, what are your needs? What is it that you're looking for? And you'll be able to help them narrow down their search to a few venues within your city, or say, if those don't work out just because of dates or budget, I'm going to put you in touch with so and so in Mesa or Phoenix. Maybe they have some other venues that might fit that need. Which brings me to my next question: is because I know this was my experience because I had not planned events in Arizona for quite some time. I've been doing event planning for 15 years, and Arizona was one of those states where depending on the time of year, it could be quite difficult to get into because it's such a popular place to go to because of the weather, right? It's a beautiful place to be, probably about 70 to 80% of the year, except for those really, really hot months. If you want to do anything outdoors, it's not the best place to go. But the rest of the year, it's absolutely beautiful, especially in the fall and winter time. So a lot of my clients for a while would not go to Arizona, but then I started to have, over these past 2 years, clients that I want to be in Arizona. So what would you say to those listening, the typical size of a venue? Like if you're looking for an event to host of this number of people, what does Tempe look like in regards to that? Can you host really large events when we at some point get back to really large events, or are you more of a medium to small size event town?
Yeah, I mean, we really know our niche, if you will, and we are
Hmm.
focused on small to mid-sized meetings. The way that we look at it is we typically see groups that are somewhere from 25 to 150 people. We can handle larger. We can handle up to like 5 to 600 people, just depending upon the setup of the different main sessions, general sessions, if there's going to be a lot of expo booth space and stuff like that. But our sweet spot where we see the majority of our events are going to be in that 25 to 150 people in attendance. And the reason that works really well for us is a couple of our larger properties, their largest ballroom is just under 10,000 square feet. So it really works well because they have great breakout space, they have great outdoor space, but then that 10,000 square feet is a good sweet spot where when you do come into the property, you're going to have that opportunity to be the largest group in the property. And then you're going to have just some leisure guests that are going to be staying at the property as well, which is going to be something that's going to be new moving forward. Is I believe we're going to see event size shrink a little bit. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really important that as individuals maybe didn't consider Tempe before, that I think it's going to be worthwhile considering us, because you might start seeing those attendee numbers fall into that 150 to 250 range, or even smaller. And that's where we really excel, because we're we're a small city within a large city. And I think that's another thing that makes it super exciting when you're part of a university city, which
Right.
we're home to Arizona State University. It really affords itself to be a very vibrant university city with a lot of things for folks to do. And it's not
Mhm.
like a college town, because the other thing that's unique to our destination is we are becoming a hub for major regional corporate headquarters. State Farm has 10,000 employees, hopefully still, based in Tempe. And then you also have other large corporations that are based in Tempe, and they continue to move to Tempe. So you have a good mix of business individuals like you and I that are in our city, that are wandering around and eating at the restaurants or going and checking out the shopping or the nightlife and things like that. And then you're also going to have that mix of the university student, which those ages are changing dramatically as well. You have a lot of
Sure.
lifelong learners that are spending a lot of time just furthering their education. And then one of the things that's super exciting, it's not super tourism related, but I think it's unique to our destination, is ASU is doing a very concerted effort as far as developing the main campus in Tempe. And one of the things that's about to open is called the Mary Bell Project. And what it is it's actually a, I hate to say it this way, but it's a senior place for individuals that are ASU alum that want to be in the heart of downtown Tempe, right on the middle of ASU campus, but it's very high end. It's a very
Hmm.
beautiful, high rise, high end, several restaurants, several performing areas within the venue as well, because what they're looking to do is they want to have professors a cool place for them to live and be a part of the campus lifestyle. So they can actually do TED Talks or type of presentations there where they live, or they could be a professor and they could be teaching full time at ASU as well. So I think it's really unique that it's not a college town, it's more of a university city that is very diverse and yet still very vibrant with a good mix of culture, age groups, and all of that that comes along with it. So it's super exciting. I get excited, which you could probably tell just when I talk about
Yes.
it. It's not the norm.
No, it's not, but that sounds super cool because here's what's important about what you just said. Going back to what I mentioned earlier is you know the area and you know the relationships, you know what's coming, you know what's there. So if you have someone who wants to know what's happening in the area, what kind of environment can I expect to send my attendees to? Is it a party town? Is it a college town? Is it a bunch of older people where, you know, if I want to send my groups out, are they going to be looked down upon because they don't want all this party going on, kind of a thing? So you knowing the area very well just goes back to what we said earlier, why it's super important now. I think the silver lining, and you and I talked a little bit about this before we started our call today, the silver linings that I always like to look for when something is going on. Like we all have to admit right now is COVID-19, and all of us are trying to figure out what in the world are we going to do? What's phase of the live event industry going to look like post COVID-19? Oh, here comes my cat across the desk. So here we go.
Awesome. Surprised you
You
never heard
probably
from my
can't see
dogs
her,
yet.
but you'll hear her here in a moment. So all of us, just like with what's happening right now, we're working from home. Things a little bit unexpected sometimes happens. So with that being said, um, apologize for that, folks. Just kind of caught me off guard that she just jumped up on my desk here. There you go. You saw her a little bit in the video.
Going to be famous now.
Yeah. My famous office assistant, she was taking a nap in the corner and I just thought I'd leave her alone. So trying to get to the silver lining is maybe pre-COVID-19, none of us really thought the need of reaching out to your local tourism office, the DMO, the CVB, because you thought, well, I'm just going to reach out directly to the hotel and make that a relationship and establish that relationship and book my event because I don't really need to know what's going on. Well, now you kind of do. You kind of need to know a lot of what's going on. So the silver lining around this is take the time now to build those relationships and reach out to your local CVB and your tourism office in the different cities that you would like to continue hosting your events, or if you, especially for those that had not had an event yet but still want to, and reach out to them, someone like James, and say, hey, what's going on in your town? What's going on in your city? Let me know. Are there, for example, are there going to be any restaurants available for my attendees to go to grab a bite to eat while they're there? You're going to know that because you know what's happening in your city. So, the silver lining again in all of this, I think, is the relationship building that we are all trying to do right now, is to help one another out and to get through all of this and to learn what's going on. How can what you're doing in Tempe help my clients who are looking to have an event down the road in Arizona? What am I doing that I could help people in Tempe look to bring business to you? So it's just helping one another out and trying to figure it all out together instead of by ourselves. So I think that, again, just recapping the silver lining here is building that relationship. And what could someone like yourself in a tourism office in a city be able to do for us that you were doing before all of this, but now are able to do it all that more, I guess, better, because you yourself want to make sure that Tempe is going to be bringing business back and be able to continue to build business, because that is, after all, what you guys are all about, is to bring tourism to the city of Tempe, Arizona.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think your Convention and Visitors Bureau or your destination marketing organization, or in smaller communities, even chambers of commerce or things like that, I think they are going to be more relevant when it comes to planning your next trip, because again, knowing the protocols, knowing what's open, knowing the new contacts of some of these business, because again, we've talked about how some of our friends unfortunately are no longer working or have been furloughed, and they don't know when they're going to come back or if they're going to come back, type of thing, because they might have had to take other opportunities to make sure that they're providing for their families that are in need at this time. So we are going to be more relevant than ever, I believe, because
Yes.
we are going to know what's going on in the destination. And when you mentioned earlier talking about how we can help out, one of the other things that made me think of that I hadn't said is I always tell individuals, even if they're doing a site visit with me in person, is I always let them know that they can reach out afterwards, because our job is to be your eyes and ears on the ground. So you might have left the destination and you might have thought something was going to work really well, or maybe you did a hard hat tour of a property that wasn't quite open yet. That's where we can go back and we can do a quick video so you can see the new space. We can make sure that those conversations continue. If for some reason a salesperson is no longer working at a property, we can find those individuals that are going to help you make those decisions that you need. So I think it's going to be really important. And the other thing that it made me think of as well, when you've talked about making sure that your group would feel comfortable in Tempe or any other destination, is other things that some folks may not think about is Tempe, we're an all-inclusive city. We actually have a city charter that promotes all-inclusive. We have a heavy focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And a lot of folks, they get caught up in the atmosphere that it has to be an event that's called like the gay rodeo or the LGBTQ event or whatever, but every group has diversity in it. And if they know that Tempe is an all-inclusive city and we have a score of 100 on the Human Rights Campaign, that's where they can go back to their leadership or their client and say, you know what, this is a really cool city, not just because of the environment or the hotel or things like that, but I know that if our folks go out and they're going to visit our restaurants and attractions and things like that, they have this spirit of being inclusive. It's not just a statement, it's a spirit. And I get so excited about it because a lot of folks that I work with, and earlier this year, we actually received an award from one of our partners that was a women's triathlon. They actually do a big summit every year, and they're trying to promote equal opportunities for female athletes and male athletes. And they actually recognized our city because of all of our efforts to help them plan a very unique event, because they didn't want it all in a hotel. So we actually used 3 venues. We were in a hotel, we were at a college athletics facility, which also gave them the ability to have their workout time complimentary. So they were able to keep up with their training because they're triathletes. And then we used a city cooperative think tank area that was based on the fashion industry. So they were able to take this really cool concept, and it wasn't just meeting in a hotel, because they wanted it to be truly unique. So those are the
That's
areas,
cool.
again, once we learn more about each client's needs, that's
Yeah.
where our creativity just starts. So again, I could talk about it for a long time, but just wanted
No,
to point
that's
out a few of those other things because I get really excited about what I and our team members are allowed to do once we know what the needs are.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad that you brought that up, James, because I get, every so often I'll get a new client that'll say, what other kind of venue can I book our event at other than a hotel? And of course, as an independent planner, most of my relationships and contacts over the 15 years have been mainly with hotels because that's the most sought after type of venue. But I have had the privilege of seeking out other really cool venues, but I don't know the individual cities as well as someone like yourself. So for those listening, I don't know if you caught what James just said, but that is super cool and unique. It's another great advantage, I think, to reaching out to your local Convention Visitors Bureau and your DMO and your tourism office, is to say, look, what other kind of venues are in the area where I could host my full event, or like you said, part of my event there. What does that look like? How is that involved? Finding, you yourself could say to them, look, I have a couple of options for you, but this is going to work better with this property because of how close they are to one another. And versus instead of having to rent so many buses and such to travel miles and miles apart, because I had that happen to a client earlier this year where they didn't seek me or someone else out to book that offsite venue. And they were on the bus for hours trying to get from one part of Arizona to Tempe because of the traffic. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Because you just wasted so much time on a bus with your clients when you could have booked a different venue so much closer and have been able to give them a lot more value. So knowing that, I think is huge. And it kind of put a light bulb off in my head because it's something that I hadn't thought of before, is taking, I don't like to use the word taking advantage of, because it kind of looks negative, but it's seriously, that's what it is, right? It's taking advantage of the fact that your area so much better than most event professionals, because we are so busy working in multiple cities where we don't really have the knowledge or time to really get to know each city as well as we would hope. But to have and establish that relationship with someone like yourself, James, will give us that opportunity to be able to help serve our clients, and in your turn, be able to serve both us and our clients, because you can represent your city so much better in that regard.
Well, and I think it's so important because as a planner, you're so busy managing your client relationship. You're so busy in the logistical details. And then you take that times 20 events a year, or let's say you have 5 events in 5 weeks. There's no way that you have the time, not to be disrespectful, to think about those creative solutions. It's just, yeah, you could hop on Google, you could do a little bit of searching and stuff, but the time that you have available to brainstorm or think about creative when we have already done it, or we would like to do it. There's venues that are hungry for the business, or ripe for something to happen. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking while you were talking, and I gave that example of the women's triathlon summit where they use 3 venues, is relate this back to COVID. So now you have a 300 person, or let's go with 150 people. You have a 150 person typical event program that you always do. But with social distancing, maybe what you have to do is you do 3 venues and you're doing 50 people in those 3 different venues. We don't know. I mean, this is going to change how we do business, and there's going to be restrictions and protocols and limitations of what we're going to be able to do when we get back to business. Because I know you even mentioned that gyms are limiting the number of people that can come into the gyms. So think about that when you turn that into a hotel situation. Sometimes that's the easy fix, is just to look at a hotel because you have a square box. You have people there that can make things happen for you. And there's a ton of benefits of doing it in one property. But moving forward with social distancing and things like that, I think we're going to have to start looking at those alternatives, even if they are maybe a little bit more complex. But that's where we come into play, and we can help make those partnerships seamless. And we can do the follow-up for you and help you make sure that if there are any issues communicating or things like that, that's where we can pick up the pieces. So that was just something while you were talking that popped in my head that I think our team is going to have to do a lot more of.
I think so too. And a lot of what I've been doing lately is just trying to get on as many webinars as I can in regards to what's happening in the event industry, with other experts in the industry, as well as other business related kind of webinars, just so I can keep current and work in my business and on it versus just 100% in it for my clients. You know, it's how can I bring value, just like with what you guys can do. How can you guys continue to bring value so that you're bringing the tourism back into Tempe when things start to open back up? And one of the things that just popped in my head as you were just saying this too is the one thing that one of the webinars I was on a week or so ago, they were talking about how food and beverage and the way that that's going to be handled through catering is going to really have to shift. And when we think about it in a common sense setting, a lot of this should have already been things to be considered before. And in a lot of areas of catering and what outside caterers do, they did that anyway. It's just within a hotel setting, it really wasn't looked upon as necessary, where I believe it probably will be now. Or you're going to be wasting your food budget by not putting things into place because people aren't going to want to eat the food if it's not being handled properly. So with that being said, you know, it could be one of those things where in partnership with the local tourism office, especially in Tempe, is what other venues could you connect us with that are following certain protocols and putting things into place to have their facilities to be a lot more cleaner. The hygiene is really kicked up a huge deal. They've got like really nice, I don't know what the terminology is called for it anymore, but the really nice covers over their stations. And yeah, so people were talking about this on this call the other day, and I happened to think, I'm like, yeah, because buffets are not going to be the same. I never really like going to a restaurant buffet anyway, let alone at an event. But how is all that going to look different? So again, utilizing your relationship, you'll be able to know and to share that with your clients, people that reach out to you, as to what restaurants or what venues have their own catering put into place where they are following these protocols. This is what they're following. This is what it's going to look like. And this is what it's going to be like for your clientele. So that maybe instead of taking your special group to a restaurant, for example, for a big dinner, you can now take them to another venue in town and bring them business that they would have not gotten before because of the things that they are putting into place post-COVID-19. So I think that's super important too for people to really get an understanding of, yeah, we have to shift our mindset again and think of things differently, but no, just remember you're not in on this alone. You know, you've got people like James at Tempe, Arizona, who's going to help you out and walk you through it.
Definitely. Yeah, those are all very valid points. I mean, it's going to be a constant evolution. Some of those webinars we've been attending as well is just it's going to be us understanding that it's going to continue to evolve. A lot of folks are like, well, what is post COVID? And really, we almost need to get that out of our mindset. And it's really just what do meetings look like moving forward? Because it's going to be a constant evolution. It might be post COVID for the next 30 to 90 days,
Right.
but it's still going to continue to evolve. It's going to look different. It's going to taste different. It's going to feel different. It's going to be uncomfortable sometimes. But at the end of the day, if you have the right people to contact, they're going to help make your life a little bit easier. And that's one of the things that I always stress when I talk to individuals and even my sales team is you don't have to have all the answers. You just need to know who to call. And if you know who to call, and who to reach out to, and you have a relationship where they're going to respond to you because you've built that trust and that loyalty with one another, that's when things happen. And I think that's where you can really start seeing movement and successes and really those accolades of when people are doing things truly unique and truly successful. So I think that's where it's going to be very exciting. And those are some of the things that I'm sharing with my team right now, because it's hard to stay motivated when you're reaching out to people sometimes and they're not currently planning events, or you do reach out to them and they tell you that they just had to cancel their September event, or you reach out to somebody and you find out that the business is closed temporarily. So you have to stay motivated and still build those relationships, because those are the ones that are going to help make things happen and help get us to whatever that success is for whoever that person is, whether it's a client, whether it's an independent meeting planner like yourself, or whether it's our hotels, restaurants, or just the overall morale of our society. It's kind of refreshing to see everybody out there walking and doing things outdoors, even though you're really not supposed to. But I think it is refreshing seeing that people are appreciating those types of activities that before they took for granted. And I think it's going to be very similar when we get back to business. It feels very stuck in the mud right now. It feels a little scary right now. But once we get back to business and we continue to partner and we lean on those relationships or take advantage of those relationships, we're really going to start seeing things happen and we're going to start seeing successes. So that's what gets me excited, is knowing that we will get through this together. And I feel very confident about that. It's just right now, none of us know what that looks like or when that's going to be.
You're right, and none of us do. And I think that the whole big picture here is, summarizing the great call that we had today with you, James, is the relationship building. What does that look like now and into the future? Is something that really we know what relationship building looks like. We know why it's there. We know what the need of it is for. And I think the most important thing for people to know today is that is how we're going to get through this. Is if you haven't started yet, start now. Build those relationships with people within your industry. And that's what I've been sharing with a lot of the people who have been following me on YouTube and here in Facebook and different things like that, is taking the time right now to build your relationships, stay relevant, stay out in front of your industry, let them know that you're still there. Your business, thank goodness, hasn't closed down yet, and you hope to continue to push through. Is there anything that I can do to be helping you? Please let me know. I'm here. It doesn't matter if we talk business. I just want to know that you're okay and that I'm here to help when you're needing it. And then when things do open back up, it's, people for a while were saying, what's the new normal? And really, it's one of those things where we can't really say normal anymore, because it's not. As of probably weeks into months now, this is just the way life is. We have to pivot is the new word. We have to pivot and change and be able to shift our mind and our thinking to be, okay, this is things are going to be different now. You know, people probably, once we start getting into social gatherings again, you're going to have a lot of people who don't want hugs. You're going to have a lot of people who don't want high-fiving. You're going to have a lot of people who just want to stay the distance but still say hi. But then you're going to have others who can't wait to get out there and start hugging people. You know, you just don't know. But the things that you do know is that building relationships is what is super important to build your business, to build your brand, to build yourself up so that you feel like you're not in this alone. And I think what is super important is taking what you know now of what has worked and taking the fact that maybe you don't know what's going to work down the road, but when you build that relationship with someone like James in Tempe or any other city, they're going to know. So don't feel like you have to go at any of this alone. Reach out, build those relationships. And what I'd like to wrap up with now, James, is what would you like people to really know that you're that excites you the most about the area of Tempe, Arizona, in regards to the event industry? Like what gets you excited when someone calls you up for the first time and they're saying, I'm considering bringing my event to Tempe. What can you tell me about it to sell me on the fact that I need to have it there?
Gosh, if I could just wrap it up into one sentence or that 30-second elevator pitch, it'd be awesome. But it, it really is so much. I think Tempe has a lot to offer for many, many reasons. A, we're super close to Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, which is super important when you're flying into the Phoenix metro area. Most of our hotels are actually closer to the airport than if you were to be in a downtown Phoenix or a Scottsdale hotel, because we're right next to the airport. So I think that's really cool. The other thing that's unique is we are in the middle of the desert, but Tempe has Tempe Town Lake. It's a 2.5-mile self-made, man-made lake that is absolutely beautiful. I am a runner, and I run around Tempe Town Lake. A lot of our staff, when we're back in the office, we go for walks, or they go for walks, I go for runs and things like that around Tempe Town Lake. But it's really cool because you literally are flying into Phoenix Sky Harbor, a major hub. You are within minutes in downtown Tempe. You can take the light rail from the airport and you can get to downtown Tempe within 3 stops, which is really cool. And then once you're there, you have Tempe Town Lake with lots of things you can do. You can even get on the water and do stand-up paddle boarding, kayaking, and different things like that. And then just on the north side of the lake, you have Papago Park, which is the Sonoran Desert, which you'll only see in Arizona and parts of Mexico. So it's very unique where you can be in a urban, downtown, metro, small city with outdoor activities that are literally within minutes of your hotel. So to me, I think it's the vibrancy, it's the inclusive nature and culture that we have, and it's being able to do those things. One of my pandemic skills, as silly as this may sound as a over 40 guy, is I met the local skateboard guy in downtown Tempe, and I was trying to bring a skateboarding event to Tempe, and it didn't quite work out for different reasons because we wanted to get really creative and it just didn't work out from a planning and logistical standpoint. But such a cool guy, the owner of this local skate shop that has 5 of them in the metro area. I'm like, you know what? I've always threatened to skateboard and I think I'm going to do it. So I actually bought a skateboard. I know how to skateboard now. And when I go back to the office after this pandemic, I will be riding my skateboard up and down Mill Avenue when I go to Starbucks or go for a meeting at ASU or at the city of Tempe, because it is just such a cool place that is very walkable and very vibrant. It's just, there's a lot of very special things. And again, I could talk about this for a very long time because as an athlete, I've crossed the Ironman finishers finish line in downtown Tempe 3 times. I finished another very big race in downtown Tempe, and there's a lot of things that I'm very connected to that are close to me and has helped me grow into the person that I am today. It doesn't identify who I am, but it is who I am because of those experiences. So I'm very fortunate to promote a city like Tempe. I'm very fortunate to work with individuals that I do. I feel like I've built a very strong sales team. We are like family. We take care of each other. They were all at my wedding last year. It is a close-knit group because we truly care about each other. And that shows when we're dealing with our clients. I really call them friends. I know sometimes I can be a little presumptuous, but I think of it as when we're talking with our friends and clients that we want to get to know them and we want to communicate in a little bit more casual. We're not stuffy. We want to help you get business done, but we also want to have some fun and we want to be creative when we're doing it.
That's all great because it makes us have that more of a trust factor with someone like yourself too, when you look at us that way, instead of just, another name and another number. So no, I'm glad you shared that with us. And you're right, because the events that I've done in Arizona in the past 2 years, Tempe definitely is closer to the airport than, in fact, properties that are in the same city as the airport. So it's ironic, but it's true. And I was at a property where I think the lake was behind us, and it's beautiful there. I do have to say it's definitely beautiful there. How can someone who's listening and watching this get in touch with you if they would like to find out more about Tempe and possibly bringing their event to your area?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of ways. I mean, obviously, we have our website, the TempeTourism.com is a great place to hop on and see what's going on. We also are keeping up with all the latest COVID updates and things like that as well. Another area that I think a lot of people are jumping on, especially during these days, is LinkedIn. And if you look up Tempe Tourism Office, one of my sales team members, she actually is the one that posts the post on there and keeps up with the content. I think it's a really relevant area where we're talking about new venues, things that are going on in our city, things like that. So you can get the vibe of our destination. And then also like Instagram and Facebook, all of those, I don't manage any of those and I'm not even on them personally. But if you ever want to get the vibe for a city, I've heard a lot of planners like yourself actually will go on to Instagram or Facebook and just kind of watch what their posts are so you can get a general vibe of what the city is. Is it fun? Is it playful? Is it older? Is it younger? Those types of things. So I think if anybody really wants to learn a little bit more, they can check us out on any of those channels there. And then, of course, good old-fashioned email is I'm just James at TempeTourism.com. And I'd be happy to work with anybody directly, or if it's within the wheelhouse of one of my other sales team members because they know their industries or market segments or things like that a little bit stronger than what I do, then I'd be happy to connect you with them because I would feel confident that they would take really good care of anybody that is considering Tempe or the greater Phoenix area.
Fantastic. Well, James, thank you so much for your time today. You really shared a lot of great and valuable information about the Tempe area and why people should consider booking their next event there. I, for one, really enjoy the area myself, and I'm looking forward to bringing back another event there in the future. Again, this is Sherrie Sokolowski from SLS Event Planning and Consulting. I am here to help you build your business and brand through live events, and at this time, virtual as well. If you have any questions or comments about what James shared with you today, please leave so below, and we will get back to you to answer your questions. Stay safe and stay in touch.